You are listening to the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, and life-giving relationships. Why focus on relationships? Because the quality of our intimate partnerships and close connections influences our health, happiness, and longevity more than anything else in our lives. Relationships matter a lot, so together, let's jump into the mud, aka our messy relationships, pull some weeds, plant some seeds, and create an enriching environment where strong relationships can take root. I am your grateful host, Dara. I am a recovering relational disaster working toward relational mastery. I am a certified positive psychology coach and relationship mindset coach at Mud Coaching. I work with teens and adults from all over the world, and I am ecstatic to get to talk to you about the one thing that lights my fire more than anything else in life, and that is learning how to create healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships that we all desire to have. So let's dive in. Today on the Embrace the Mud podcast, we are continuing our 4-part series dealing with unmet needs. And today we're focusing on what it looks like to clearly communicate your needs to a partner or other person in your life. Last week, we got clear on what your needs actually are. This week, we are setting you up to successfully communicate your needs using what I call needs-based communication. When dealing with unmet needs, we often fall into a communication trap that is other-focused and what I simply call failure-based communication, meaning we communicate in a way in which the focus is on what a person is doing wrong or isn't doing right or how they are flawed and disappointing and essentially a huge failure at being the partner who can satisfy us. And while you can argue that what you are communicating about how they are failing and falling short is factual and accurate and all of that, the thing is, it's not going to be effective. And the goal is, let's remember, getting them to meet your needs. Criticism isn't going to inspire them to change or grow or want to make you happy. It's not going to cultivate in them a desire to shower you with loving actions and to fulfill your every desire. Instead, the person who is essentially being told, like, hey, you are just not living up, okay? You just aren't good enough at present, and we need to rectify that because I'm very unsatisfied with you, is going to feel deflated, unappreciated, maybe attacked and shamed. Again, what they will most certainly not feel is motivated and encouraged to show up for you better. Believe me, I know this was very sadly my strategy for far too long. Yes, I was like the queen of failure-based communication. Okay, so I get it. I've been there and I know that there's a better way. Yet, despite the fact that failure-focused communication does not yield the desired results and in fact creates more tension and disharmony and less relational fulfillment and satisfaction mutually, it remains the go-to strategy for many of us. Not all, but many. Why is that? My theory is that it's because many of us take our unfulfilled needs very personally. We make negative assumptions about why the other person isn't meeting our needs. Assumptions like, they don't actually care about me or my needs, or I am clearly not important enough to them. They are just taking me for granted. They don't really value me. They only care about themselves. They are lazy and don't want to put the effort into fulfilling my needs. And on with the negative assumptions we can go. We interpret feeling insignificant as evidence that we are, in fact, not significant, not a priority, and that this is being done to us. We feel victimized. As a result, we approach getting our needs met in a defended way. There's this underlying belief, whether conscious or unconscious, that they don't actually want to meet our needs. That's why they aren't meeting them. In fact, they are trying to get away with not meeting our needs. So we have to forcefully make them, or else. And that's the energy we bring to the conversation. We bring a warring spirit based on the assumption that we have to fight for our needs. This puts us at odds with the other person because it assumes we want different outcomes and that only one of us can have our way. This mindset will not set you up for success because it assumes all negative things about the other person and their intentions. That they don't want to, that they would rather not, that they aren't concerned with your happiness, that they need to be forced to do it and won't do it willingly. The other person will likely feel that negativity, and rather than want to correct it by meeting your needs, they will become defended against it because they won't believe that they deserve to be seen that way. It will feel unfair and possibly even insulting or assaulting. And the result will be that you will both feel devalued and unloved. So, the very first step to communicating your needs clearly and in a way that gets heard and received well is to check your mindset and adjust your attitude. And that begins with assuming the best about them and their intentions. To get psychically aligned, if you will, and assume you both want the same thing, which is for each of you to feel loved and valued in the relationship. Secondly, that includes remembering that your needs are ultimately your own responsibility, not theirs. Their role is simply to support you in meeting your own needs. So ask yourself, have I made my needs clear to this other person and have they agreed to help? If the answer is yes, I've already done this with love and kindness, then you assume the best about why they haven't followed through yet and approach them to find out what's getting in the way and how can it be rectified. If the answer is no, you haven't clearly stated your needs and made concrete agreements, now would be the time to own that and communicate your needs to your partner. Your energy and body language are going to have a major impact. If you're harboring resentment or judgment, it will likely come across no matter what words you choose. So working on your mindset and finding an open, curious, and loving attitude toward the person you want to ask to help meet your needs is critical. I wouldn't attempt the conversation until you've been able to do this inner work if you recognize that it's needed. Needs-based communication focuses on how a certain action or inaction makes you feel and clarifies which need is going unmet to make you feel that way. It then invites the other person to agree on a way to help you meet that need. So, for example, you might say, I notice that after we have a disagreement, I feel sad and frustrated. And upon reflection, I realize that it's because I don't walk away feeling understood by you. I need to be validated in order to leave those conversations with a sense of security. Can we talk about what it would look like to validate each other when we disagree? From here, you can share some specific statements they could say that would meet that need for you. You might say, I'd love it if you could just say something like, even though I disagree, I can see where you're coming from. Or what you're saying makes sense, but I do see things differently. That would really help me feel that you are trying to understand my point of view. Would you be willing to do that? It might help to envision what it would look like for your need to be successfully met in advance, and then describe that as clearly and specifically as possible. And finally, asking for participation. You can ask your partner to work with you to find a solution, or if you have a specific solution in mind, ask if they'd be willing to do that. The key is to give them a choice. They can say yes, they can say no, or they can offer an alternative solution. And you can keep the conversation going until each of you feels satisfied with the agreement. For example, they may respond to your request and say, well, I can certainly appreciate that feeling understood is important to you, and I want to feel understood too. That's also important to me. But sometimes I really just don't understand. I can promise to seek to understand where you're coming from, but there will be times I probably won't get it. So in those cases, would it suffice if I say that while I can say I totally understand or that your view makes sense to me, I do accept and respect your perspective, because that is something I can promise. And I can promise to try to understand and let you know that I do when I genuinely get where you're coming from. To that, you might say, you know what? I think that's fair. I appreciate you wanting to be honest with me. Yes, I'd rather you only say you understand if you truly understand. Knowing you're committed to trying to get how and why I see things as I do is what I really need from you. So thank you for being willing to do that. Another important part of successfully communicating your needs is that you don't only need to be clear about what you're asking for, you need to consider the personality and emotional makeup of the person you're approaching and the quality of your relationship at that moment. Consider how things have been between the two of you lately. Is your partner particularly sensitive when you express dissatisfaction? Have they recently expressed any frustrations that they have toward you? Are they stressed or sick or working extra hours? What's their mood been like? If they have been struggling or if your relationship has been strained, you may want to start the conversation up with an appreciation or an acknowledgement to help them feel seen and understood and at ease before you communicate your need and make your request. And finally, if you receive resistance or if you have asked before, maybe even multiple times, and there hasn't been any follow through, it may be time to bargain. One strategy is to try and help them see how they themselves will benefit from meeting your needs. You could also ask your partner what you can do for them in order to make it easier or more pleasant for them to follow through and meet the need for you. If you have tried clearly communicating and asking your partner to help you with a need or several needs and they are not following through, it could be that they are also feeling unfulfilled by you and that their needs are not being met. Next week, we will talk about the roles that meeting your own needs sufficiently and meeting the other person's needs play in your needs getting adequately and consistently met. Okay, that is all I have for you today. I hope you found this episode helpful and that you feel equipped to ask for what you need. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, follow, and write a quick review. Your feedback and follows are extremely valuable for the growth of the Embrace the Mud podcast, where we discuss all things related to healthy, joyful, life-giving relationships. Until next time, please remember, you are wired for love and connection. You are capable of love and connection. You are worthy of love and connection.